Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, my Dharma friends. Now, today we will be learning a sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya. This sutta is about the five aggregates. So, my friends, here actually there is some incident which is taking place. So, as we go through this sutta, so we'll get to know about this, some of the things about the five aggregates as well as about the Buddha and about the Arahants. Is there someone who read this for us? So the first para?
Okay, Bante, may I?
Oh yeah, so the first para, you can
Okay.
read it for us, yeah?
At Devadaha. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town of the Sakyans named Devadaha. Then a number of westward bound bhikkhus approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him,
Okay, so as it mentions, at that time, our Supreme Buddha was dwelling at the town of the Sakyans. So I think that you have heard about the Sakyans, right? So there are the people of this certain clan which is named as Sakyans, yeah. So these people have some relation to our Supreme Buddha. So the Sakyans lived in Devadaha. So that's the city. So today nowadays, so actually it was in Kapilavastu. That city was in Kapilavastu. So when our Buddha was living at that Sakyans city, the number of westward bound bhikkhus approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Venerable Sir, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there." So I think you have heard some stories of the monks who going for the other places like to stay. So as with our Supreme Buddha, so the Buddha advised for the monks that you should spread the message of the Buddha by compassion towards the other beings for them to overcome their suffering. So that's why usually the monks go for other countries and other areas and other provinces. This one is also the same. The monks, before they are leaving their place, usually monks, nowadays they pay their respect to their teacher and to their elder monks. So at that time, they first went to the Supreme Buddha and they pay their respect for the Supreme Buddha. So there is an incident which happens then when they meet the Supreme Buddha. So this was a short discussion. Could anyone please read this?
Venerable Sir, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there. Have you taken leave of Sariputta bhikkhus? No, Venerable Sir. Then take leave of Sariputta because Sariputta is wise. He is one who helps his brothers in the holy life.
Yeah, so the Supreme Buddha told these bhikkhus, it's better that if the monks can go to the Bhante Sariputta and pay respect and let Sariputta Bhante know that they are going to that westbound province. So then the monks replied, so my friends, who is now the Sariputta Bhante is? So the Sariputta Bhante is the Buddha's great disciple, the chief disciple. Is that right? Yeah, it's right. So the Bhante Sariputta is known to have a great wisdom, and he's one after our Supreme Buddha. He's the monk who is like have strong wisdom, a sharp wisdom. So our Supreme Buddha said now to these monks to go to the Sariputta Bhante, and they replied, "Yes, Venerable Sir." Those bhikkhus replied, "No." Now on that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was sitting not far from the Blessed Ones in a acacia bush. Then those bhikkhus, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement, rose from their seats and paid homage to the Blessed One. Then keeping him on their right, they approached the Venerable Sariputta. They exchanged greetings with the Venerable Sariputta, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, they sat down to one side and said to him, "Friend Sariputta, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there. We have taken leave of the teacher." Okay, now please read this part.
Friends, there are wise Katyas, wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics. The question of bhikkhu has gone abroad. Wise people, friends, are inquisitive. What does your teacher say? What does he teach? I hope that you, venerable ones, have learned the teachings well, grasped them well, attended to them well, reflected on them well, and penetrated them well with wisdom, so that when you answer, you will state what has been said by the Blessed One and misrepresent him with contrary to fact, so that you will explain in accordance with, and no reasonable consequences of your assertion would give ground for criticism.
Yeah, so now what this Bhante Sariputta wants to the bhikkhus to conduct. So the Bhante Sariputta said to these Brahmins that you will find people like Brahmins, Khatyas, householders, and ascetics who question bhikkhus. So because that they are going to some certain different place, could be different nations and different races and different concepts that they hold about their lives, and like they have like different, could be that there are like different ascetics and other sayings. So they could ask these monks, because the monks are very new, so they will ask from the monks that if they are wise actually. So there are people who thinking about like they are things that they comes in front of them, so they keep think about them wisely. So if they ask you, what does your teacher say? What does he teach? If they ask from the monks, so the monks should have well knowledge to answer this question. So should teach this Dhamma well, grasp them well, attend to them well. So then they can easily answer their doubts and their questions. So this Sariputta Bhante said to these monks actually, so that when you answer, it should be something that is something that really said exact the idea of the Blessed One. It must be not misrepresent him. So it should not be something that could criticize, because this Dhamma is very open to us, right? So for anyone, for any person, any householder, any Brahmin, any ascetic, any Khattiyas, any nationality, so for each and everyone, it's open, just like the sun, just like the moon. So when keep thinking wisely on the Dhamma, so they will realize this Dhamma and they will understand this Dhamma. So the monks said, we would come from far away, friend, to learn the meaning of this statement from the Venerable Sariputta. It would be good indeed if the Venerable Sariputta would clear up the meaning of this statement. Then the Bhante Sariputta said, then listen and attend closely, friends, I will speak. Yes, friends, those bhikkhus replied. The Venerable Sariputta said this.
There
Yeah,
are
thank you.
friends, wise Khattiyas, wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics who question a bhikkhu when he has gone abroad. For wise people, friends are inquisitive. What does your teacher say? What does he teach? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer, our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust.
So the Bhante Sariputta said, there are friends, wise Khattiyas, wise Brahmins, wise householders, and so on. So when they ask, you should answer like this. Our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust. So the Supreme Buddha teaches us to remove something. What is it? It's the desire. And it's the lust. So here the desire has two variations, right? So the desire, when it comes to wholesome things, I mean like when someone have desire to attain enlightenment, it's a good thing. But there are some things like desire for unwholesome things, like if someone has desire for killing beings, and that's wrong. But here, Bhante Sariputta says to us, this desire is actually the craving. And the lust and desire is the two words that we are using for the craving, right?
When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Khattiyas, wise ascetics who will question you further. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. In regards to what does your teacher teach, the removal of desire and lust. Being asked thus, friends, you should answer, our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust for form, the removal of desire for lust for feeling, perception, volition of formations, consciousness.
When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Khattiyas, wise ascetics, will question you further. So removal of desire and lust in a life is something like need some explanation, right? It must need some explanation because when this is actually the world, the worldly things are bounded to us from the desire, and we are in middle of the world which is full of things which cause us to desire, to have craving, to have lust. So Bhante Sariputta says, when you have answered like that, so the other people will again ask, in regard to what does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust? For what? That you should give up desire and lust? Friends, if they ask like that, you should answer, our teacher, friends, teach the removal of desire, lust, for form, for the material form, that you should abandon the desire. You should not have the desire. You should remove the desire of the feeling, of the perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. So this is about khandhas, right? So we will go for explanation after reading this part.
When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Katyas, wise ascetics, who will question you further. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. Having seen what danger does your teacher teach, the removal of desire and lust for form, the removal of desire and lust for feeling, perception, volitational formations, consciousness. Being asked thus, friends, you should answer thus. If, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving in regard to form, then with the change and alteration of form, there arise in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. If, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving in regard to feeling, perception, volitational formations, consciousness, then with the change and alteration of consciousness, there arises in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. Having seen this danger, our teacher teaches the removal of desire and lust for form, the removal and desire of lust for feeling, the removal and desire of lust for perception, the removal and desire for volitational formations, and consciousness.
So the Bhante says that when you have answered thus, friends, there may be Katyas, wise ascetics, who will question you further. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. Having seen what danger does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust for form? So he said that one should give up, remove the desire for the five aggregates, and but having seen what danger, that you should give up these five, that you should abandon these five aggregates. So if they ask that wise people, if they keep asking like that, so you should answer this way, thus. If, friends, one is not devoid from lust, desire. There is very nice few words actually for the desire, for the word craving actually. So he says that if, friends, one is not devoid of lust, if not abandon lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving, regard to form, when the form is changes, and when it changes and alteration take place, when the form is altered, so there arise one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. So that's why one should abandon these five aggregates. If, friends, one is not devoid that lust, that desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving in regard to these things, they will start to suffer. because in reality, those are not permanent. They have the impermanent state, which is keep changing, right? So here I need to do some explanation for you. Like, so we have 5 aggregates, right? So the first one is the form, and second one is the feeling, third one is the perception, fourth one is the volitional formations, and fifth one is the consciousness, right? So as we know, the form, actually it is the material form which is created with 4 great elements. So the great elements are the solid, liquid, fire, and air element. So the most closest form for us is our own body, right? So with our body, there are these 4 things. So this form is just like something like a form. So the form is like form, right? So here form is F-O-R-M, is the material form. I'll use the word material form. And the form is like, I think that you know this form as a substance. So once the Buddha said like form is like substance, like I think that you have seen the shaving form. Shaving form. And sometimes it's like the soap, when we dissolve with water, there arises some kind of substance that's form. And also there are like the sides of the rivers, there are like when the water hits the bank of the river, there arise some certain substance like bunch of bubbles, blob of bubbles. So this is form. So it doesn't have, if you take it and if you squeeze it, that you will find that there isn't have any stem, like permanent thing. If you take it to your hand, so you will see it like very empty, so empty thing. Even that it has the shape, even that we painted it like we mixed with some color, so it has the color and the shape, but it's not permanent. So once the Buddha said that form is same as the form. So our body, F-O-R-M, the form, material form is our body. So the form is just like that, similar to that. So there is no any certain permanent thing in our body. So when the consciousness left this body will be fall down to the ground and it will be soiled. Because it didn't have any permanent thing, right? And then the feeling. Feeling is 3 ways, like there is a happy feeling, sadness feeling, and neutral feeling. So these 3 feelings are also the same. It is impermanent. So the feeling is like when it rains to the water, there arise like water bubbles, but it will not last forever. Have anyone see that any water bubble when it rains, like being like the same place as permanent, like the water bubble? No, we'll never see that, because it spins and it breaks. It spins again and it breaks, and it keeps on breaking. As soon as it hits the water, and then there pops up some water bubbles, and they'll break. So Buddha once said that the feeling is the same. If you could see that feeling, if you keep like a closer attention to the feeling with mindfulness and with the wisdom, you will see this feeling as arise and ceases, arise and ceases. There arise happiness, there it ceases, and there arise sadness, it ceases. There arise neutral and it ceases. But it's not in a kind of order, but it's not the same order that it happens, but the feeling is depending on the contact, right? As long as we have that contact, we feel, right? Okay, then the next one is the perception. So the perception is also like perceive, that we perceive forms, which means figures that we see from our eye, through the eye. So we perceive like this is red color, this is white color, this is blue color. So we perceive. This is my friend, this is my enemy. So that's the perception. So it's just like an kind of recognition. So you recognize that. You notice that. So this is the perception. The perception is also arise and it cease. The perception is just like Buddha once said, like a mirage. When we are on the road, we see like the road is like covered with flood. So just like flooded. But when we come closer to that place, so we see the flood in some away from us, and we go for that place and we see again it and again, but we will never find that flood, like that something that is seen as mirage, right? So in desert, the deers also see this water on the desert, but when they chase it, they will never find that water, because it's like a delusional thing. It's not real. So this is the same as for us. Whatever that we see, whatever that we hear, smell, taste, feel to tangibles like feel to our body, and thoughts. It looks like permanent, but it's not. But it's really impermanent. But we perceive it as permanent, and it looks like happy. It looks like joy and pleasure, but in real, that's not, because it's suffering, because it's arise and it ceases, and it's just like ourself belonging to oneself, but that's not belonging to oneself. So this is a perception, right? And then the volitional formations. So the volitional formations are just like there are volitional formations regarding to the things that we see, things that we hear, smell, taste, and so on. We will have the volitional formations. But this is also the same. And the consciousness. So the volitional formation is, for a simile, Buddha said, like it's like a plantain tree. It's just like a banana tree. So there is no stem. So we keep peeling it, but we'll never find a stem. So the volitional formations, the things that we think, things that we speak, things that we do from our actions, body. So all of these three volitional formations are just like once one is peeling the plantain tree or a banana tree, we'll never find an stem. In samsara, with long journey, we had this same thing. So we think the next life will be okay, the next life will be okay, but we'll never find that stem until that they find Buddha's Dhamma, like what you already have now. So you are so fortunate. I always say this for my Dhamma friends. So you are the most fortunate people to get the opportunity to learn these things. The last one is the consciousness, the aggregate of consciousness. See, so the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and the mind consciousness. So the consciousness is just like a magic. So the consciousness creates like a wonderful world, like a fantasy. It's magic. It shows you like different things, but it's not real. So these five things should, if we have the desire, thirst, affection, passion, lust, craving, so then when they are changing, because we didn't know the reality, we didn't realize it, so we started to suffer. But if we don't have that desire, affection, thirst, passion, craving, and lust, when it changes, we will never suffer because we knew the reality of these five aggregates. So normally, usually in our life, we already have the attachment towards this, but we need to practice the Dhamma, and we should see these five objects through with the wise wisdom, wise consideration actually. So until that day, so when they start changing, we will suffer. But if we give up those things, like with the attachment, if we abandon that, we will never suffer even if it changes. Right?
When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Khatriyas, wise ascetics who will question you further. For wise people, friends are inquisitive. Having seen what benefit does your teacher teach, the removal of desire and lust for form, the removal of desire and lust for feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness. Being asked thus, friends, you should answer thus. If, friends, one is devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving in regard to form, then with the change and alteration of form, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair do not arise in one. If one is devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion, and craving in regard to feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, then with the change and alteration of consciousness, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair do not arise in one. Having seen this benefit, our teacher teaches the removal of desire and lust for form, the removal of desire and lust for feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, if one divides that, devoid lust, desire, and so on, so when the alteration occurs, they will not have sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair. So then the Bhante says, if friends one who enters and dwells amidst unwholesome states could dwell happily in this very life, without vexation, despair, fever, and if with the breakup of the body, after death he could expect a good destination, then the Blessed One would not praise the abandoning of unwholesome states. So the Bhante says that conducting something which is like, if friends one who enters and dwells amidst unwholesome things, if they conduct unwholesome, so if they can, at the same time, if they can live happily in this life, if their breakup of their body will reborn in the good destination, then the Blessed One would not praise that abandoning of unwholesome states. But because one who enters and dwells unwholesome states, it will bring suffering. That's why the Buddha says that you should abandon these things, unwholesome things. And then Bhante says again, if friends one who enters and dwells amidst wholesome states would dwell in suffering in this very life, with vexation, despair, fever, and if the breakup of the body after death he could expect a bad destination, then Blessed One would not praise the acquisition of wholesome states. But because one enters to the wholesome states, will be happily in this very life, and after breakup of the body they will be born in the in the good destination. That's why the Blessed One praises the acquisition of wholesome states. So these two paragraphs tells about our Supreme Buddha's compassion, how he projects, how he shows us this life and how to develop this wisdom in our life. So we will have the great confidence on the Buddha if we listen to Buddha's word, which is Dhamma. So this is the way that we should introduce our teacher to other people if they question us, right? This is what the Venerable Sariputta said. Elated those bhikkhus delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's statement. So they were like so happy to hear this Bhante Sariputta's discourse, and they would tell the other people that what they are practicing and what is their teacher is doing and what is teaching and what the monks are practicing. So yeah, this is the Devadaha Sutta, what we learned today. So yeah, we have like 5 minutes for if anyone have any question.
So if I'm saying that we should practice nibbida, which is disenchantment towards the 5 aggregates.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, I mean, because we have to live within a society where there's the sense faculties are up in arms, right? We're so surrounded by sounds, music, or, we have to interact with people on a daily basis. In order to protect our consciousness from latching on to sight, sounds, taste, smell, touch, how can one practice nibbida when there's a form in front of you and we know that form is an illusion created in our mind according to this sutta? Right? It's something that it's a projection or it's a mirage, right? And then we know consciousness is a magician. So how do we kind of deal with that situation when we're speaking to somebody or we're tasting something or smelling? Should we just take a equanimous, neutral state of mind? Or
so the Buddha advised us to be with the contemplation of the body, and you can be mindful with your body, else you can be mindful with your feelings, and you can try to be mindful with your mind, with your mindly states, and also you can be mindful with the Dhamma. So these are the 4 things that we can project, like we can keep mindful. So, and being mindful, actually, our mind will like bound to our body, will not wander. So if you are doing the postural meditation, at the very moment when you find that it's bothering you, like there are so many things which gives us like so many undesirable states, like lust, greedy, and craving. So you can do it by you can overcome that. You can try to abandon that by being mindful. Sure that you need wisdom and you should need the mindfulness.
So wisdom, mindfulness, and clear comprehension will help us to negate or any kind of unwholesome states that arise in the mind and push it aside and bring in the wholesome states.
Yeah. So
right?
the
With the
wisdom
Dhamma.
the wisdom actually brings you to the clear comprehension until that you attain that comprehension, so you should keep thinking on a wise way, as things are impermanent.
Anicca anatta dukkha.
Yeah, what we just now done that meditation. Like if you can do that meditation, so it will improve your wisdom.
A question on the last couple of paragraphs. I'm just trying to sort of wrap my head around the last couple of paragraphs in terms of what the Buddha praises and what he does not praise. It's well, let's just say the last paragraph. It says if one enters.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to understand that I mean, like the last two paragraphs.
Yeah.
So it's the way that it is on that sutta. Actually, it says like Buddha will not tell to conduct or to practice. Will not tell to practice good things if it isn't gives you good results. Because it gives you good results, he tells you that you should practice that good things, wholesome things, and also the opposite of that. So the conclusion is that, like, actually, one need to practice good things,
right,
in order to have good results. That's what the teaching of the Buddha.
Right, and he would praise that.
Yeah, he would praise that because of the good thing, because it's
right. And what would he not praise?
He will not praise the unwholesome things, like bad things.
Right.
He will not keep telling that you should do these unwholesome things because it brings us to the sadness.
Right. But
because he has compassion, yeah?
There's one part where it says, you know, the person does the right thing but gets the wrong results. Right? He does the right thing, but he gets the wrong results. And the Buddha would not praise that. Because
Buddha wants everyone to get rid of every suffering in their life.
Right. Right. Okay, so they've got to do the right things, but it's got to have good results. It's got to be successful, right?
So yeah, it sure be successful because the Buddha realized this one before.
Right.
He knows that this. So yeah, that's why we should be humble to the Buddha's words, to accept that and to keep practicing it, because we have confidence of the Buddha. So with the confidence, one will get this understanding.
So is it possible that maybe if you do get the wrong results, that maybe you're not quite doing the right thing? You're getting the wrong results.
Yeah, well, yeah. So here in this sutta, actually, in the last two paragraphs, so you can read it several times, so you will have some understanding of that paragraph. So for more, actually, so this is how the teaching of the Buddha shows us, actually.
So when aggregates of clinging come up, and with this we can see with wisdom. So it's with wisdom to see. So if I have something with pleasure, to understand that this is impermanent, it's not going to last. Say I buy a new car. Well, I understand that this car really is not mine, and one day this car is going to be gone. Me and this car are going to be separated. So to see that with wisdom, it's not bad to buy the new car, have the new car, but it's to have understanding of what it is and what's going to happen. Is that correct?
Yeah, so one needs to have some positive way of looking at things, the worldly things that we deals with, actually. So even that it still have the feeling as pleasure and joy, so it also has that danger part. So the danger part is like it's impermanent and it's suffering and it's non-self. So to escape from that, one needs to give up the craving.
So we pay homage to the Blessed and Supremely Enlightened Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We pay homage to our teacher, Luke Swami Mahansi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so do you have any questions? Any Dhamma questions?
Yes,
Anything related
Bante.
to the Sutta today or anything you want to ask?
Bante, may I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So a while ago, one of the 5 aggregates of clinging, the last one is consciousness. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out if we want to put that in the discussion, like it says, if one is freed from lust and cravings to consciousness, then with the change of consciousness, then the suffering will no longer arise. So, but then Bhante, consciousness is very essence part of everybody. So in fact, I believe that last time we said consciousness is just like the seed. So most of the time, so the craving will definitely be attached to consciousness. Am I right? Or maybe Bante can elaborate more on this one, on this last aggregate. Thank you, Bante.
Yeah, so the consciousness aggregate, as Buddha realized, it is the always when we learn about the consciousness, it's about the 6 classes of consciousness. So what is the meaning of 6 classes of consciousness? It is about the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. So as long as there is craving for the consciousness, so again this craving is for the consciousness that arises dependent on mentality and materiality. The cause of the arising of consciousness is always Nama Rupa. Nama Rupa Pachya Vijnana. So where are these Nama Rupa? Where are these mentality and materiality? They are in the 6 sense bases, right? That is the arising, the cause for the arising of 6 sense bases is mentality and materiality. Nama Rupa Pachya Salayatana. Dependent on mentality and materiality, 6 sense bases arise. So the consciousness arises, the cause for the arising of consciousness is also mentality and materiality. That is why consciousness always arises in the seeing process, hearing process, smelling process, tasting process, touching process, and thinking process. So craving for consciousness is that craving arises when we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, when we touch something, when we think something. Because that is where consciousness arises. So now you can see, when we see something, there is craving. When we hear something, there is craving. And as long as this craving exists, that is the nutriment for the consciousness to continue. That is why Buddha teaches in another sutta, Vijnanam bijam, consciousness is the seed, tanha sineho, craving is the water that supports the growth of the seed. So when the craving is abandoned, consciousness does not produce the necessary conditions for new mentality and materiality. So this dependent on mentality and materiality, consciousness arises, and reverse is also the same. Dependent on consciousness, mentality and materiality arise. Nama Rupa Pachya Vijnanam, Vijnana Pachya Nama Rupa. So with the abandonment of craving for consciousness, the consciousness does not produce any mentality and materiality which will bring new existence. That is the consciousness of the Arahants. Like the Arahants, they have eye consciousness. They cognize things with their eyes. They cognize things with their ears. There is ear consciousness. There is nose consciousness. There is tongue consciousness. There is body consciousness, and there is mind consciousness in the life of an enlightened being as well. But that consciousness does not give rise to any mentality and materiality, because the dependent origination, the links are cut off. The thing that binds things together in the dependent origination is the craving. So the craving is abandoned. Even though the I consciousness arises, it doesn't support for any new arranging of karma or anything like that. It's just a bare consciousness. And with the final passing away in the end of the lifespan of the Arahants, the consciousness ceases. It's called Vijnanasa Nirodhena. The consciousness ceases. That means, like, that's the end of suffering. That's the end of suffering. Because if the consciousness is supported by craving, when somebody passes away, always there will be another life for that being. Another life means a new set of 5 aggregates of clinging, a new life with the material form, which is the material aggregate of clinging, another 6 classes of feelings born of eye contact, ear contact, and so on, which is the feeling aggregate of clinging. And there is perception aggregate of clinging in the new life. There is a volitional aggregate in the new life, and there is a consciousness aggregate of clinging in the new life. So again, another set of 5 aggregates of clinging will appear. Maybe as a human being, maybe as an animal, maybe as a hell being, maybe as a ghostly being, maybe as a heavenly being. Wherever, doesn't matter. Another 5 aggregates of clinging. And then that craving continues. And then there is craving for the form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness of that being. And you learned from the Devadaha Sutta, if there is craving for these 5 aggregates of clinging, in any realm, in heavenly realm, human realm, sensory realm, lower realm, wherever, if there is craving, what is the result? You learned it from the Devadaha Sutta. Buddha thought about it. If there is craving, when those 5 aggregates of clinging alters, when they changes, then when they become otherwise, suffering arises. Sorrow, pain, lamentation, despair arise, right? That is the reason. That is the danger of craving, the continuous craving from life to life, right? This craving is never ending. Bondage.
So Bhante, Bhante, eventually this consciousness, without the craving, without the water put into it, so the seed is there, but then it will
just
not grow.
dies.
Yeah, it dies.
Can't grow.
And then the next step. So that's the reason. After consciousness is gone, then we go to nothingness, right? Something like that.
After consciousness is ceased, right? It's called consciousness ceased with the cessation of mentality and materiality. Like you always have to understand the arising and cessation of consciousness in terms of the arising and passing away of dependent origination. Always you have to go like that. So with this, like in the beginning, like with the true realization of the Four Noble Truths, like true knowledge, right? Which is Vidya, and Avidya is replaced right? With Vijja. So now there is no ignorance. There's no not knowing of the Four Noble Truths. Now there is the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, right? With the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, avijjayatveva asesa viraga nirodha, with the cessation of lack of knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, comes the cessation of sankhara, right? The formations cease. With the cessation of sankhara, with the cessation of formations, sankhara nirodha, vijnana nirodho, consciousness ceases. With the cessation of consciousness, vijnana nirodha, nama rupa nirodho, mentality and materiality cease. So that is how you understand the cessation of consciousness in terms of the cessation of the dependent origination.
Thank you, Bante.
And then all the way it goes with the cessation of mentality and materiality comes the cessation of six sense bases. With the cessation of six sense bases comes the cessation of the contact. With the cessation of contact comes the cessation of feelings. With the cessation of feelings comes the cessation of craving. With the cessation of craving comes the cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging comes the cessation of arranging of karma. So there is no more arranging of karma. With the cessation of arranging of karma comes the cessation of birth. So there is no rebirth. With the cessation of birth, jati nirodha, jara, marana, soka, parideva, dukkha, domanas, upayasa nirujjanti. With the cessation of birth comes the cessation of aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, mental suffering, physical suffering, which is the end of all mass of suffering. So when we try to understand the cessation of consciousness, we should always apply this the arising and passing away, the cessation of dependent origination. That way it is very easy to understand. I mean, like to get a clear idea about the cessation of consciousness, rather than trying to understand it as a like separate entity or like individual thing. Is always important to understand it as a link, another link of the dependent origination.
So Bante, so it just comes back down to the basis of everything arises, passes away, and nothing's permanent.
Right. That's the base.